from our panelists today about that. The Nations Classic, which will feature Howard University and Hampton University tonight. This event we call the game before the game, and we think it's important that both institutions with our storied histories put on the type of academic discussions as for more students with academic scholarships on the team. So it could be not just Hampton, but we have protesters from Ferguson as well. We have a student who participated in that activity. You'll hear from him as well. And I have to take this opportunity to thank our for the Deans is here, and we'll certainly welcome her, and I'll turn it over to her. Thank you very much again for it.
Responsible for convening this, including Dr. Frederick and Mr. Hadley over there. Thank you. Social justice and the associated issues for African Americans and for our institutions. HBCUs are uniquely positioned and obligated, and the well-being of us today involves America's ongoing struggle with race, and particularly the evidence of justice, and has done so with a solution and action has a rich tradition, a rich history that's steeped in a tradition of service. Hampton has always worked to engage the minds of our students in ways faculty, especially using their talents to addressing health disparities through the Hampton University Minority Men's Health Initiative. The racial HBCUs. The health disparities that we're focused on in addition to cancer is violence prevention program, particular to the it's culture-based and it's family-centered. And its overall goal is to help these males achieve the goals, and men are brought to Hampton's campus every week to participate in workshops that are developed by a team of researchers at from the community, as well as police officers and these young men of promise. It is helping to change mindsets and reduce tendencies to dehumanize these males. It allows us to provide training on how best to accurately perceive these men. As we move forward, resources for this and other similar outreach programs that are making a identify and implement solutions to major societal problems is widely recognized. Capital to financially support our efforts. I look forward to this discussion. Can be taken to being drum majors for justice. Thank you so much.
We are streaming this live. In 1997 from the School of Communications, and I understand the young people call it something different now. Something different I don't even recognize. But happy to be back here. To President Frederick and to Dr. Colon, thank you for having us here today to have this important conversation, because we know that what is happening around the conversation and devotion. So next hour and a half or so, we're going to delve a little deeper into a conversation about this moment in history, but I'm hoping that we can embark on an authentic and a very candid conversation forward, that we have being uncomfortable, talking about things. There has to be a breakthrough, and we are the ones to hopefully have an important contribution to that. And so this exchange is for you. We're going to go through this discussion. I'm going to introduce our panelists quickly, and then you can allow you to ask questions in your own voice to our panelists here. So we have state violence planning team, and is the founder and co-editor of the Ferguson Protester newsletter. He's activist, organizer, educator. He was a former teacher. He worked in both New York and in Baltimore, and his new life work is helping to lead systemic human capital change. And so, DeRay, thank you for being here. I should say that DeRay has to leave around 11, and so his equally talented Campaign Zero group from St. Louis, Missouri will be here in his place when he has to leave. So thank you, Hampton University. She is a junior major, a student leader in East Africa. She taught prisoners, children in Tanzania, and she too wants to university student and activist, and his he and other students came together around what they call of Ferguson and St. Louis high school students that are uniting against state-sanctioned violence. He's now a freshman here, major in political science. Through the years, she worked American woman in the history of the NYPD, but her does not have times of its own. When she is not making history, she is wife to Gregory, and she is mom to two sons. That the Howard University Police Department, coming home to his alma mater. He spent 27 years with the Metropolitan Police Studies, went to Alabama for his master's degree, and he is raising a 22-year-old daughter. I'm going to also try to play the role of timekeeper here. More than 195,000 instrumental in this Black Lives Matter movement. Can you how, with all due respect, when these things have happened, you haven't had to be moderated for the power of social media?
Yeah, I think about we've always faced these issues of erasure, and erasure manifests in two ways. One is that either the story is never told or is told by everybody but us. And in this moment, we literally became the tell this story to combat these dominant culture narratives that were simply untrue, but we were able to talk to each other differently in a way that was really powerful. West Florissant and like made hot dogs and hamburgers. Social media, but
talk to me a little bit about the Black Lives Matter movement, because I think of DC, there was a church in a pretty affluent area just outside of DC, predominantly. Later, it had been stolen, and then they put it back again, and I was tweeting about it. And after I started tweeting about it, people were saying, well, don't all lives matter? And so I was saying, well,
the civil rights movement, the phrase covers lay in the street, and people are mobilized around that. I think that people stood in streets because they saw people standing in all states but 3, right? So people understand the crisis differently around police violence. I also think that the movement is focused on understanding the police as like an entrance to a broader conversation, a visceral representation of the other ways that the state infringes on. So they're safe for a host of other reasons. And
you have some thoughts about policing and the difference between policing and officers serving and protecting. Can you talk a little bit, piggybacking off of what DeRay just mentioned about the challenges with police violence and some of the statistics that he's mentioning?
Absolutely. And I'm speaking to you from a place where I have had experience with the community. And experience with the community, not just when an incident has taken place, but engaging the community too, because the police is. And I'd like to move away from that concept of policing a community. There needs to be a perennial relationship that should go on all the time. And the police should look at, and they raise their hand, to serve and protect. Engage the community. You get to where you can really hear, see, and listen to what needs. Medical, health, education, all of these you're talking about serving communities of color. If by chance a person has a medical condition, and let's just say that product now of our interest, the police, in some way. That really should not be, because we need a there are a lot of individuals that come into and then they interact with the police, and this is quote unquote violence. So now that person is now taken away. System. That should. We should not be arresting kids. Now that child is arrested, handcuffed at 6, 8, 10 years old, and taken into the police system. We need to really, so they don't become a product of the police.
Brings and then this notion of like serving and protecting. I push to complicate the way we talk about community, right? Because it is. What I would offer is that it is not the way we talk about white spaces. At the Upper West Side, like, you don't need to know my name not to harm me, right? And the way that we talk about community side is safe, not because it's flooded with police and the NYPD. But when we think about sort of communities of color, there is this notion that they should be like ever present, which is what we see in so many communities. In ways that we don't surface. Does that make sense?
It does, and let me just say, because we said we were going to have a candid conversation here, is, the police should not be seen as an occupying force in neighborhoods.
We agree.
How we realize that in communities of color and our there needs to be the police. But there has to be an understanding because, and I say this because when you start to talk about happen, and
There's also crime on Wall Street, right?
there
And
is
there's
crime,
not this.
and it's a different type crime, and it should be addressed as so you can't put a blanket on crime. You have to look at it specifically. And where there is crime, I want to say this: we need to realize that.
Is that there's crime on Wall Street, and I can tell you people are selling heroin and cocaine on the Upper West Side, right? And the police are not like way that I think that Wall Street, insider trading is in Frederick Douglass.
And I like to add that often people look at the content of situations and environments rather than the context to look at other alternatives to those issues. And the reality and the fact is that that police are occupying. They're an occupying force. Rather than serving protecting, they are intimidating, punishing, and killing.
And one of the things in my current capacity, as the moderator spoke about, while I am starting to strategically look at the city, where are our viable candidates? We need to have people be part of the change that we want to see in our community. And minds and the knowledge that we're hearing from you, we need to hear this in law enforcement. And we need to have educated and professional and very viable candidates like from law enforcement and the community and come to some policies within our police departments. For example, our police departments. We need to know what type of attributes they have to act out. We don't need to actually have people come in. Are you going to respect the community? Are you going to have courage? Think through things and not just react. How do we test for that to make sure that we're bringing in the individuals that we want in our police department?
You're talking about people who have a high degree of emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
A lot about how your experience growing up in the projects formed your decision to go into the line of work that you're in today.
That's absolutely right. And the police station was within the same block. Occupied force, the station was a part of the community. We didn't feel it was a part of the community, but it was a part of the community. First of all, I have to say with regard to the videos, the incidents, the situations are real. And as a African-American law enforcement officer, when I see them, and as Clifton pointed out, when we start talking about policing communities of color, I spent 27 years right here in D.C. when D.C. was a community of color. There was probably one part of the community that people would relate to color, which was often talked about in Georgetown, but here in the city, and you hear the term community policing, it came from a different voice. That community was saying, police, help us in our community. And in that situation, there was violence, there was crime, but we worked They see the infrastructure, bike lanes, and all these different things, and they forget 10 years ago we were dealing with some of those same things of violence. That the partnership between the community and the police is essential. That it cannot be the community against the police. It has to be the community and the police together, i.e. matter that was being done. So again, as a leader, when we have the conversation as an entity, but like mistakes and people die. That when we make mistakes, people die. And we have to live with the fact that there's prosecutions, there are firings and things that come from that, but we have to continue to try to work together to make that community safe. Because like Chief Royster said, there are victims in that community. I worked in homicide for 3 years, had an individual, and I was interviewing him, and his brother was killed the day before. And I said, look, man, they're coming after you. They're going to try to kill you. You need to work with. The next day I came to work. There are a lot of police officers committed to law enforcement, but we have to overcome the realities that the Rays and Clifton go through to overcome.
So it sounds like there, at DeRay, we talked about this a little bit. There's a bit of a philosophical difference with the words community policing.
Comments, because I'm going to go and then I'll swap out with Netta. So I'll say a host of things. To answer that question directly, I'm all about community policing. Upper West Side kids are going to their fancy school and they have the police saying how. Community police everybody, right? Like equal opportunity community policing, but that's not, community policing is like coded language about how we manage black bodies. And there's this expectation that like the police should just be all over black communities and I get it, right? I'm from Baltimore. It's not an excuse, like that is sort of be violent. And like, and the response, they were killing each other, and like that is sort of what that part of the change you want to. I don't need to be a police officer for the police not to harm me. In the same way, I don't need to be a teacher to expect a great education. I don't need to be a doctor to expect great health care. What we did wasn't, and not a self-reflection couched in, they used to be dangerous and black people commit crime, or a statement. And like a statement like that is, we pathologize crime in black communities, but then sort of, so when it is about Wall Street, it is like, let us. That just sort of kills people. So I will push on those sort of things. The stop snitching, I don't, and I can forward and said like the police aren't doing things right, but there's this expectation that people in communities should just, please tell on everybody. And not that I'm saying they shouldn't, but I do think in the same way that I was a teacher, I couldn't tell my kids turn in your homework on, or this mythic space that we talk about when we use language to pathologize black people.
Really quick before you go, myself. Clinton wants to talk to you all as well. What are your ideas for the policy that should come out of the movement?
Yeah, so we met with Valerie Jarrett at the White House yesterday, 2 days ago, and then we met Bernie the other day and talked through the campaigns and all these people. We just rolled out Campaign Zero, Joint Campaign. We believe that we can like structurally systems and mechanisms to get us to that point. So we believe that, like that we can, whether it's body cameras and independent investigators, fixing police union contracts, we can do all that stuff. This will also be like a hearts and minds thing. The police, and this is not like a, this isn't about you two. The police, the Upper West Side is safe because they are resourced differently. The safety is really about strong families and, like jobs and workforce development and like access. Safety, there will always be a part of safety that is about the mitigation of harm to bodies and property, that will always be there. And we can reimagine what that looks like. That isn't necessarily the police. The center is not flood them with police. It is like, I don't know, do something, I don't know.
So in the way that we might talk about social determinants that help to contribute to safety or not.
No, that flood did not, like, the drug trade isn't having any harder time selling drugs. They're just being more creative. This sweeping way we talk about crime.
I'd like to give you an opportunity to speak, and thank you, DeRay, for being here today. We're going to do what we call a brain swap here, and we're going to have Janetta Elsie come on with us.
One of the things I want to say about that, because I think DeRay's points are accurate, but I think the difference is that those things are going on. There's that policing is I was in charge of the Office of Professional Responsibilities that ran the internal police come from the same culture. That I had a case the other day where find our towns in the community says, but we don't want to work with you. So when I talk about community policing, I'm talking about understanding, realizing, and accepting as solid and you can move to there's but you have
them to their university experience. In the case of Clifton, he had an experience, an unfavorable experience with the and then as the administration, and we can get to that in another way, how you respond to students are bringing with them to college campuses across the country. And you can speak specifically about Hampton if you'd like.
Okay, I think it's great that students bring these experiences because educational backing to go with their real life experience. I don't think that means that you can't address the root issues, like DeRay was saying. I don't think that you can't do community mutually exclusive that in the Black community because of historic reasons and other things. We do have like violent, at least, but as like mentors and things. So our solutions have to be complex.
Clifton, you're very involved with the Black Lives Matter movement here on Howard's campus. What are you hearing as a student leader, and what do students want the administration?
Like, you literally started to catch us when you thought we ran away.
Can we try to, and I'm hoping we can wrap this part up because I know that some folks in the audience may want to engage with each of you individually. The question that so many people ask that may not necessarily be involved community ask, and I often hear is, Black Lives Matter folks to come together to start to build the trust so that we can move past this pain for people in the country right now. Did you want to start, Clifton?
So what we have to realize is that racism is at the root of many of the institutions in this. 100 people have been killed. Jeff, you said since September, right? It's fact that young black women they're being killed. It wants to acknowledge engaging students on
Howard students come together in a room with campus police and have an unstripped, unfiltered conversation.
People that something real comes out of it. And it's not just another meeting to just say, oh, we were there, we showed up. Structural changes need to happen. Something needs to happen because students here in colleges feel as if police are not there to serve and protect.
We're here on Howard's campus. Yeah. We may know Howard more than we know Hampton. Is the same
right? So it's like we have this fear of, and so you're not so fearful. Like if anything does happen, I know I'm gonna be, get the shorter end of the stick. So once we make policies, a fair share they're gonna be in court, or if something does happen, we won't have with police thinking, oh, this person is against me, and I'm not seeing them as another human. Then we're not gonna be able to trust them. And if you can't trust them, you can't interact.
About police presence, that Howard University is in the middle of an urban center of students who's been the victim of an attempt murder. We've had students who have been victims of sexual assaults. We have victims who've been the victim of armed robberies. But we also have had ongoing relations with student services where we have been working. Next week, we're having a safety fair on our campus. And I'll say now, one of the objectives, because I think the things you hear are real, when a person says, I don't want to shake your hand, that means you can't start with that person because they're unwilling to have any relationship with you. So one of the things we're doing next week with Safeway gave us 20 gift cards at $25 gift card, because all our person then in baby. Now let's start building relationships. When we get there, it has to start with engagement.
So that's the view from the campus here. Chief Royster, what's your macro view?
I'm glad you said macro, because I always, when I discuss police and when I discuss public safety, I like to know your behavior to be a certain way. And once you realize that you have a bias to a certain thing that's not going to move you forward, you move beyond that. Now, I will say this, and I'm glad you talked about relationships. Realize if you're not engaging the public, you're not going to know what they need. And we had an equal need. We needed people in our police department. So now what we're doing is launching this citywide Hispanic, all the Latin countries that we can reach throughout the city for 30 days. And every place we can. But it's not just about the recruiting. Is going to be amazing, amazing. And that's what the community wants. Now, I will say this. I hear how many people have been killed by police. But we must know how many people have been killed in this country by other people. Build relationships and also keep the crime down.
That is
Police, because we are the first viable source that's there, and it shouldn't be that way. So we need to start talking about these things very candidly.
what needs to be done to build trust and to move forward across the country with the Black. We'll open up questions to the floor.
So, community engagement activities, but I will not give you a pat on. Want to be. What's your name again?
Ivana.
Ivana. So, I'm a Ferguson protester, and I'm from St. Louis. I grew up there. I lived there. I'm not afraid of. Had that many horrific experiences with them until Ferguson. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid of them. So that's just, I want to be clear, I'm not fearful of the man out of his hand. And not only is he just a man, he is a man all the time. Of that sort, Clayton trying to plan on, or they wanted us to talk about how can we make it safe for protesters. So I've had those conversations. I'm willing to come to the table. Do I believe everything the police? Facts or the statistics.
So what I'm hearing everybody say, and I'm going to move this forward because I know you have to get there. It's going to take some significant work to get there. That you would like to address the question to, and let's try. It's on.
Hello, my name is in 2007. I was robbed, like near campus. You know, I was hoping for a follow-up. No follow-up. 2 years back, all the lockers have been broken into. People had instruments, like suspect things on campus. I won't ball my fellow Howard students out or whatever, but like, you know. So recently, my fraternity, I've been finding out for the music fraternity, we have an open mic on the front steps about like this, but yet, as we're putting on an open, shut it.
Tell us your question.
So, see, there's like no consistency. So when something does happen on campus, you know, you take a report. You feel is your job.
So is that a question for
2 years ago, 4 years ago, you're right, a report is taken and investigative staff to understand people want to hear back. Oftentimes that answer back is we don't have any new information. So the fact that we didn't solve the crime is not the issue. The fact that we didn't follow that we try to improve on.
See what? I'm going to let you talk to Chief Jordan when this is over, okay?
Yeah,
I would love to keep this moving just a little bit if you wouldn't mind, just because we don't have a whole lot of
alum, and I live not far from here in Shaw. As a Janetta, I probably felt like her. Living in the Shaw neighborhood, not far from here, there was a lot of problem with crime and drugs. And I ended up going to the 3rd District Chief my life around. Is I met a guy that you may know named Rodwell Cato. Partnership. And what authentic community, because
Hello, my name is Caleb Davis, a senior electrical engineering
We
major.
can't hear you.
Hello, my name is Caleb Davis. I noted want to push forward and continue to speak on his problems, except in a situation like this, that there hasn't been really a good communication. There are students on campus with organizations feel we have a relationship with each other, but we don't have a relationship with the campus police or other police in the community. So if we build those relationships, talk about how we need to have a better training system, but actually have relationships with each other, regardless of our business of I need to protect them. It's the business of we consistently have over time.
Point well taken.
My name is Anthony Driver. I'm a senior here at Howard. And my question is more so about like personal biases. Dreadlocks, and I wore a lot of sweatpants on campus, and I would literally get stopped a lot by campus police, and they would ask me, well, you know, where's your ID? Are you from the neighborhood or are you a Howard student? And I've had terrible experiences with police in Chicago and terrible experiences with police here. So I literally had a real disdain. Why is he here? Like, talk. And it was like before I knew, like just literally chopping it up and having a good conversation. Like now when I see him, I'm like, I'll run up to him and like try to dap him up or talk to him because we found that common ground. Because they're paid to do this, but what part can we play to job to do that, but what can we do to reach out and as people? I think we get chopped up in that a lot. At the end of the day, you know, I look at him and I say police officer, but then you also have to look at him and he's a police officer to me when he takes his uniform off. He's a black man. He's from the south side of Chicago. He's from right.
That's right. Chief Jordan is raising a daughter.
Saying, what do the students need to do to reach out to the
not need.
police?
So again, I said it's not police. I'm asking you, what can we do to try to find that common ground? And literally, for me, it was a conversation with one person, and I still feel the same way.
My job here is to get my degree, right? My job is not to always look over my shoulder and see if an officer is looking. I feel like the students need to continue organizing, to continue here on campus, to just do their jobs, right? It's their job.
So does the relationship
This situation is not being perpetrated by us, right? It's not the job. We make it known or not. If they don't want to make the change, organizing and protesting and so forth.
So there is work to do, and that's what we hear here.
And can I say, I agree, and I think I've learned, and I created a program called the Youth Advisory Council, and based on 3 premises: exposure in the area I was responsible for. I brought community, and what I would do is say, for example, Dean Wutah, that it's a chance to talk to you. You're build that relationship where now you're willing to listen to me through that partnership, then it's a...
Ask you a question? Whoever asked me.
Mr. Driver.
I'm going to put it in plain, simple terms the issue right now. So if you up, man, you get me. You use one individual.
It changed my perspective about him.
So
Let me ask you, is there something, let me not say what, is there something we can do
yeah.
to kind of just...
They put this on the administration. Without the students, the police wouldn't have a purpose to even be here.
So in America, as voters, literally without an ask, you're not controlling them, right?
Students actually.
Entire police force, which
So
is why I
this in 1 second, but
I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me be a part of this panel. I know we're specifically talking about people and some of the students that feel that, and I'm going to do a stretch here. I would like to show how angry people are about what's happening with the police. I'd like to see you leverage social media to show how the police is communicating.
Where is it? Twitter, where do I go look to see it? Or Facebook, or Tumblr, or Instagram.
If you have a relationship with the
No, we don't.
No.
That is not going to fix structural racism.
It'll
though.
start. One person will start that whole conversation.
Well, if feeling harassed.
down, girl, pull it down.
Hello.
There we go.
My name is town. So like I see that there's a clear difference in police. How as students we don't feel comfortable without them like us in a force that like we don't feel comfortable with. When I walk into my dorm, the security guard, like I know they don't have anything to do interact with them on the way they want me to. I can't be nice to them if I walk into the room and they're rude. How can we, like, how will the police do that for us?
So what you're hearing is that there's a lot that even if they register their concerns with the campus police, that they will be received or heard? Right. Is that what you're saying?
One of the things I'm plan to do between residence halls, and again, my goal is to come out, and I know some 5 can talk. If 100 want to talk, 100 can talk. That if there are, and I'll tell everybody right here, my email address is Brian. I'm accountable. I own the problem with police relationships at Howard University, but I also commit is another people are harassing me and I think I'm gonna get robbed and we'll respond services to both sides. So
What can she do? Who else can she talk to besides talking to the police directly?
It depends on I say all the time.
So give her a seat.
She can CC Gracia Hillman, who's the vice president.
Hear what everybody has to say as well.
And every time the president's on social media and he receives complaints of a police nature, I'm on social media. You can tweet me. It's HU. You can, because just like Chief right here, and that we've been able to answer your questions. And like Mr. Driver said, you're not going to always like what I say.
Like a complaint office or like human relations office person?
Campus, do you
like on
have
campus,
an
yeah.
office of,
For police complaints?
no, an office of human is on college, one at Howard here just started, one at Hampton, and one. You know, I'm very, as a student, I went to University of Maryland. Then when Maryland at College Park was working with the Office of Human Relations with John Slaughter. He was the first black chancellor that they had at the time. And being a young person at that time, compliance to work with the police, because University of Maryland had a long-term history, still does now, of having problems with students of all races. I work specifically with contact person for different issues that they could go to, as well as going directly to the
For the university, and he serves in that capacity. Using the term community policing is that it's part in each segment of the community that we're here at the School of Business, and that's just one. Howard University is like a city, and all the different entities make up our community.
You all be willing to have work with an officer, go on patrol with the officers? Because I think
to talk about the yin and yang of how that would work.
Last question.
How's everyone doing? My name is Paul Holston. I'm the news editor for the Hilltop Student News. I was referring to what Anna, what they all said. This is just that you can possibly share with us community-wise being taken towards personal accountability and personal integrity between the right and wrong. Because a lot of students, we know who you are, but when we sort of speak to the other police officers here, for the most part, you only can do so much as one person. But how do you go about personal integrity when such situations that students, that a police officer is in the wrong, but sometimes it's not always the outcome of what actually happened. How do you?
Our crime, it talks about what we do, but praise. And ethics. So I start with and partnerships. So I have to be able to work with athletics, student life. Partnership and collaboration to get there. And the third part, what Mr. Driver and them talked to me about was you got to give students something to make them feel comfortable. So gift card to go to Safeway. Okay, as opposed to just giving them away, what we're going to do is say, you've got to meet 6 or 7, their name and where they're from. And so with 20 gift cards, and all those people meeting 6. This isn't going to be solved in a day, and it's not going to be overcome just because I have a safety fair next week. But it's a dorms, and I'll bring police officers with me, and we can.
And I hope that this conversation will continue, that you'll family with Chief Jordan, and you should make sure that you get experience from your Hamptons. Thank you so much for joining us.